Have you ever wondered how Newham got its name? Well, before 1965, there was no such place as Newham. There was East Ham, West Ham and North Woolwich, which was then part of Kent. Local government reorganisation in that year merged the three areas to create a new borough, Newham. But what about the Ham? I always assumed it was short for Hamlet. But local historian Stephen Pewsey came on the line and told me that's not the case, and its history goes back a long way.
We have to go back more than 1,000 years into Saxon times. When the Saxons colonised England after the Romans left, they gave their own names to places. They replaced all the old Roman names. And basically, as they were sailing up the Thames, round the bend of Barking Creek, and there they saw a nice piece of low-lying land that was ideal for a farm, and they called it the low-lying piece of land, which is Ham in Anglo-Saxon.
Now, there's a lot of interesting names in Newham. For instance, Silvertown. How did that get its name?
Oh, that's Mr. H.W. Silver. He's a very interesting chap. I mean, he's really the founder of what you might call the Victorian Internet, which is the telegraph system. He patented a process for making what's called gutta percha, which is a kind of process for hardening rubber. And once you've got gutta percha, you can make submarine cables. You can wrap this hard rubber around copper wires and you can lay them beneath the seabed. Right. As soon as you can do that, then you can create a network of submarine cables around the world, and then you can telegraph all around the world. It enabled the Empire and all the other rising world powers of the time to get going. As I say, it was called the Victorian Internet, and from the telegraph, technological development went on to the phone and so on.
What about Canning Town nearby?
Oh, Canning Town. Now, that one is a mystery. Canning Town sort of sprang up in the late 1840s round what is now Canning Town Station, and absolutely nobody knows where the name came from. There was a British politician at the time called Canning, but he only became famous much later, and so it doesn't seem very likely.
Was he from the area?
He wasn't from the area at all.
No.
And some people have suggested there were canning factories in the area, which there weren't. So Canning Town is the great mystery, and if anybody can shed any light on that, that would be really great.
And also North Woolwich. It's the wrong side of the river, isn't it?
It's right. It was part of Kent until 1965. And that was a cunning ploy by a Norman baron called Hammond, owned Woolwich, the south side of the river. North Woolwich was then part of East Ham. But when the Normans conquered in 1066, he grabbed a bit of land on the north side and sort of annexed it to South Woolwich. And we think that was because he wanted to keep the taxes from the ferry.
Right.
He wouldn't be able to collect the revenue on the north side, but he wanted the revenue from both sides.
Right.
So it's just simply a money-grabbing ploy, but as a result, we've ended up with North Woolwich.
How long has there been a ferry there?
I should think there was a ferry there in Roman times. We certainly know there was one in medieval times. And there's references to ferry going between Charlton and what's now Silvertown in the 17th and 18th century. In fact, we know Dick Turpin used that one to escape from justice on one occasion.
Local historian Stephen Pewsey has already told us that it was Silvertown where the Victorian Internet and telegraph system began, that a greedy baron gave us North Woolwich, and that Dick Turpin used an early version of the Woolwich Ferry. So let's find out about the history of the names of other places in the borough. How about Plaistow?
That's another Saxon word, actually, and it literally means the place where people go out and play. It could be the place where people went to watch a play, like a medieval sort of mystery play or something like that, but it's much more likely that what they meant by play was a place where you go and practice archery, or you might go and play what the early version of football. Because you've got to remember that the centre of Plaistow around Richmond Street was once a village green. It was a village green till about 1850 before it got built up, and then it was literally a place where people go and play.
Little Ilford is quite strange because it's sort of it's not actually in Ilford, it's in Newham, isn't it?
Right,
East Ham.
yes. Until about 1400, Little Ilford wasn't called Little Ilford. It was just called Ilford,
right? And
it was actually more important than Big Ilford, if you like. Right. Then they began to call Ilford, what we now call Ilford, began to be called Great Ilford, so we know it had grown faster.
Yeah.
And really that had grown faster because they had the backing of Barking Abbey, and Little Ilford didn't. So,
right.
so it began to be where the market was held and
Yeah.
where the people began to move to. But yeah, Little Ilford was definitely the biggest settlement in the Middle Ages.
And that was the original Ilford.
That's right, it was. It was on our side of the roading.
What about Stratford?
Stratford is the street on the ford. The Saxons used to call anything that was a Roman road a strat, what we now call a street.
Right.
And the Roman road from London out towards Colchester crossed the River Lee at Stratford and made its way northeast. And it was certainly a very recognisable feature of the land, even 500 years after the Romans had gone.
An old ford, was there a ford there once?
That was originally the ford before Bow Bridge was built by Queen Maud in about 1100. That was where the old Roman bridge was. Obviously, by the time the Saxons began calling it the Old Ford, the bridge had fallen down and it was literally a ford. And the story goes that Queen Maud, about the year 1100, who was King Stephen's wife, went across this river and took a fall from her horse straight in the river, and she said, well, I'm sick of this, I think we'll have a bridge. She built the bridge, which is now Bow Bridge, and it was the first stone bridge in England since the Romans had left.
How about Bow itself?
Bow refers to the bow of the bridge. It was an arch-shaped bridge.
Right.
Saxons were more used to sort of straightforward planks across streams, and to have a stone-built arched bridge was, as I say, it was a wonder of the Saxon age when it first appeared. The majority of the place names in our area are Anglo-Saxon, but as I say, each wave of settlers has added their little bit. Like, we think that it was probably Norman French settlers who gave Plashet its name, because that's a medieval French word meaning a small spring or a small stream. We're lucky that there's enough surviving manuscripts from Anglo-Saxons, not many, but we're lucky that enough have survived and have been studied over hundreds of years that we can reconstruct the language and know what they were talking about and know how they named places. And the same with Roman and obviously with medieval English place names too.